Hello everyone and welcome in. This is Amanda, the founder and creatrix of Full Woman Rising, and today we're going to be talking about the feminine energy blueprint. This is one of my favorite ways to start reorienting us to our feminine cycles, our feminine energy, and our feminine rhythm. This is one of the key pillars that is imbued into everything that is Full Woman Rising. We use the feminine energy blueprint to really kind of hold a framework, a pattern of the cycles and rhythms that guide our unique feminine energy as women. And what I find first and foremost is usually when we start talking about this as women, this is something that's going to feel resonant and it's something that's going to feel like remembrance to you. The feminine energy blueprint is just part of your natural makeup and design as a woman. So we're going to just break this down into a few different sections. I'm going to show you the feminine energy blueprint right away. And then we're going to spend a little time just kind of exploring how did we get so disconnected from this and how reattuning to this can create some pretty profound shifts within and without. All right, so here's our feminine energy blueprint. And at first it might look a little simple, but I'm going to kind of guide you through the different aspects of this and just really kind of help us orient to how this really shows us where we can thrive by leaning deeper into our feminine cycles and essence. So as you see this shape, the first thing we notice is that this is a circular spiraling framework. Everything with feminine energy is represented by the sacred circle. We have been very conditioned by a very linear society. We are very imbalanced in our masculine energy. And while we do need both, we have really kind of deviated and fallen into the extremity of the masculine energy. And unfortunately, even though we used to be very attuned to our cycles as women, we have now really disconnected from the symbology of circular, cyclical living. And there's many things that go along with the circle, but when we see a circle, there is no beginning, there is no end. Everything is interconnected. Everything is woven together. Just move through these circles and these cycles, knowing that there's not a single point, a single destination, a single task to be done, but rather our role is to reattune to cyclical, circular living, the cycles of ourselves, our femininity, and of nature. They just keep moving through along with the rhythm of our natural energy. And then the other thing that I just want to point out right away is this feminine energy blueprint, this structure, this framework is all based on the power of 4. So when we really think about the power of 4, this can be found in any natural cycle. I'm going to show you what I mean by this, okay? We are talking about archetypal feminine energy. So we think of course, women and the feminine aspect within all of humanity. We think about Mother Earth, the earth cycles, the seasons, the ever-flowing cyclical rhythm of nature that is always playing out. We think about the moon as feminine, which also follows her phases and her cycles. And what we find is that if you really study patterns and cycles of energy, most of them actually follow this pattern of 4. And this is really where we unlock this feminine energy blueprint. A few examples, okay? The first thing we're going to start with is the earth, right? The earth moves in 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And that comes back to what I was talking about with circular cyclical living, right? We understand and accept and acknowledge that these cycles play out, and each cycle is unique, it is different. And we're not sitting there, in the winter of earth and nature demanding that it grow trees and bear fruit like it would in the summer. We understand that every single season not only serves its own unique purpose, but every one of these quarters, spring, summer, fall, and winter, actually is a key step to nourishing and feeding and fueling the season ahead. We need the depths and the decomposting and the stillness of winter to create the fertile ground that we will seed something to grow in the spring. And without the seed, we would not have the bloom or the growth, right? And then once we hit the autumn, that is our time of harvest, when everything starts to fall away and comes back to winter, and it starts and repeats over and over and over again. That is feminine circular cyclical living. That is the feminine energy blueprint. How we take this a step deeper is to understand that that same pattern, this same blueprint and cycle can be applied to so many things. Okay, let's next talk about a woman's menstrual cycle. So we understand that women are cyclical. We have our monthly cycle, and it plays out and goes through its full cycle every single month, over and over, month by month, day by day, year by year, life cycle by life cycle. We have 4 distinct phases in our menstrual cycle, mirrored in this framework. We have the follicular phase, we have our ovulation phase, our luteal phase, and our menstruation. So even though we understand we have a monthly cycle, we can break it down into the 4 quarters of the energy blueprint. And just like we examined with the seasons of nature, each one of those phases and cycles has a unique energy, has a unique purpose, and kind of feeds and nourishes us into the next cycle. When you start living cyclically, rhythmically, energetically, you will start to honor each cycle, because your hormones, your physiology, your energy levels, and your moods will all fluctuate and ebb and flow as you move through each phase of your menstrual cycle. So again, we're just mapping out the framework here to help us understand how potent and prevalent this feminine energy blueprint is in all aspects of feminine, creative, energetic living. Then we can look at the moon. The moon in astrology and in mythology is inherently feminine. And guess what? She follows this exact same feminine energy blueprint as well that we do in the earth, that we do in our own feminine bodies. So too does the cosmos. And this is really outlined by the phases and the cycle of the moon. We have 4 unique phases, 4 main energy phases of the moon. We have a new moon. The moon waxes and goes from its first quarter into the full moon, and then it begins its descent as the light begins to wane as we move from full moon to last quarter to into the new moon again, over and over and over again. So you can see that this pattern, this blueprint, this framework is prevalent in all feminine energy cycles. There are many, many more examples than what I just said, but I like to start with those, the seasons of nature, our menstrual cycle, and the lunar cycle, because those are some things that are really tangible mirrors into how prevalent this feminine energy blueprint really is. So in essence, that is the feminine energy blueprint. And like I said, by nature, it is pretty simple framework. And when we start applying that framework and really not only knowing it, but living and attuning ourselves to embodying the cyclical nature of our feminine energy, this is when we really start to create some profound shifts as women in how we live and lead our lives.